Quick question for you, Saints fans. Who is your favorite player that's still in the NFL that used to rep the black and gold? My answer, it's got to be Trey Hendrickson, but I've seen a lot of people in our live chat saying C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Willie Snead, and Lonnie Johnson Jr. So let me know who your favorite player that used to rep the black and gold is that's still in the NFL. I wanted to ask that question because in this show, we're going to be breaking down some free agent targets that are still available, but the one commonality they all have is they used to have a fleur-de-lis on the side of their helmet. They all used to be Saints players at any point in time in their career, so that's what I wanted to do to get this thing going. So the first player that I want to start off and talking about is Mike Thomas. He is still available in free agency. I have seen a little bit of buzz with him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but let's talk about him because he is one of the top free agents still available out there just in terms of any position. Last year, not a lot of usage, a lot of ups and downs. We got some really cool stuff in the touchdown in the Jags game. Then we got some big-time catches throughout the regular season. But then, just shit hit the fan, took things to Twitter, started, complaining and getting mad and airing his grievances out, if you will. And that just really put a sour taste in a lot of Saints fans and especially the Saints front office around number 13. And this used to be a guy who at one point in time was the leading receiver in the NFL, is the leader for most receptions in a single season with 149. Still has yet to be beat. But I do think if you're able to build the bridge back and mend the gap and heal that relationship, I think he still fits a position in need. A big-bodied X-wide receiver, that is something that the Saints are lacking. Now, I do understand maybe A.T. Perry is a guy who could fill in that role. Or maybe you lean on your tight ends like your Juwan Johnsons and the Dallin Holkers. But I do think that at this point in time, this is not coming back anytime soon. This is not going to be a reunion, if you will, that's going to happen in New Orleans. And especially under this current regime, I just don't see Michael Thomas returning to the Saints. He is a player, maybe, a few years from now, if Dennis Allen is out of here and the current regime is gone, maybe Mike could return, but he isn't coming back anytime soon. He's a guy that's going to be stuck around in in the free agency. Maybe he plays in Pittsburgh. Maybe he goes and plays in Kansas City. Maybe he goes to Baltimore. Maybe he goes somewhere. I don't know. But I just don't think Michael Thomas is coming back anytime soon. I would love to see him come back at some point. I mean, let's not forget how great he was with Drew Brees and how dominant he was at one point in time in his career. That's just not what he is anymore. That's just not where he is anymore. And to be honest, it doesn't seem like he ever really wants to return to the Bayou. But who knows? Maybe after Dennis Allen is gone, if that happens in the near future. Number 2 player, we're sticking on the offense. It's actually none other than Juice. Let's talk about Jarvis Landry because this is a player who I'm not going to say I want back, but he has an interest in returning back to the NFL. In 2023, did not play because he was dealing with an injury. He was recovering. He just never got signed to a team. I found it especially interesting when teams were dealing with injuries. Jarvis Landry never got a call, never, signed with another team, but he did have a tryout at Jags rookie minicamp. So he's trying to get back into the NFL, trying to find himself on a roster. And to be honest, when you put up these numbers over the last handful of seasons, it's kind of tough to be like, let's go and bring this guy in. Let's go pay him a bunch of money. Let's bring in a player who's a quality seasoned veteran, who knows how to win, who knows how to do it all. And he can do that, but even last year, or in 2022, only 9 games played. In 2021, 12 games played. Last year, 0 games played. That's my one concern, and I would want to bring him in to be like a slot kind of guy. Not just have him run a handful of routes every game. But I do think you already addressed that with Cedric Wilson. I mean, you brought him in, and I think that he will be your slot receiver. To be honest, I heard a podcast, Ross Jackson discussing, I don't think Hunter Renfrow is coming in. I think that you have that with Cedric Wilson, and honestly, I agree with that. I think that Cedric Wilson is your slot receiver. I don't think that it makes sense to go and pay another player that is going to be a veteran, that understands the system, that can help teach the young guys, when that's literally what Cedric Wilson's role is. So that's just my personal belief. I do think you have that void filled, but I think a reunion and bringing back Jarvis Landry to the Bayou would be pretty fun, especially considering the last time he was there, it just really didn't it didn't really move the needle. It wasn't really as exciting as a lot of us expected it to be. But I want you to pick a wide receiver. If you absolutely had to, which one of these two receivers would you bring back to the New Orleans Saints? Type MT for Mike Thomas or type JL for Jarvis Landry. I'm excited to see what you guys got to say because personally, if I had to pick between the two, it might be Mike Thomas, but, it might be Jarvis, actually. It might be Jarvis. I'm just tired of the Michael Thomas antics, to be honest. I see Oliver Jensen in the live chat saying Mike Thomas. Rhett is saying Jarvis Landry. Kenny is saying Jarvis Landry. Queen Courtney, the birthday girl, all was saying Jarvis Landry. So I'm going to agree with you guys. I'd take back Juice. All right, let's talk about another offensive player the Saints could return. Maybe Jimmy Graham. And now, obviously, he's on that expedition where he's going to be rowing across the ocean. And that's not until 2025. I want to make that very clear. That's not until July of 2025. But in 2023, we did get to see a very surprising reunion right before training camp got underway. And it was pretty unfortunate to see how underutilized Jimmy Graham was last year. He only played in 171 snaps, which was 19% of the offensive snaps played throughout the entire season. That's the lowest of his career. But when he was used, he was still dominant. I mean, this guy was almost the leading touchdown scorer for the Saints, and he only was targeted 7 times. What are we doing there? That is unbelievable. And I do think maybe there is a possibility of fitting him in on this tight end depth chart. Because to be quite honest, I'm not even going to consider Taysom Hill a tight end. He is a football player. He's a fullback. He lines up at quarterback. He lines up at running back. Lines up as receiver. Lines up as tight end. Lines up on the O-line. He's just an offensive player. But I had to put him somewhere on the depth chart. So I do think that maybe you could have a Jimmy Graham fill in the void, maybe if there's an injury or something, or you have a low-end depth piece where he's just on the roster, can kind of be a game day decision every week. You can run with Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, and Jimmy Graham. But I do think you have a future star in Dallin Holker. And to be quite honest, I'm really excited about what Holker can do. He has really, really nice hands. He's dangerous at the point of catch, super long arms, and he's extremely athletic. And to be honest, I would love to see Jimmy Graham come in and try and mentor this young player because I think that he could really teach him a lot, especially in terms of contested catches, especially in terms of bulking up and getting big because that's what Jimmy Graham is. He is a big-ass dude, and he is freaking dominant, and I would love to see Dallin Holker learn something from number 80. And I will just kind of give you a quick reminder, if New Orleans does make any moves, we got you covered. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anytime that there's any news around the team, whether it's injuries, roster updates, coaching, buzz, whatever, we're going to break it down for you here on the channel. So be sure to subscribe. Don't miss a thing, Saints fans. This is your one-stop shop to get all things black and gold. All right, another player let's talk about is Latavius Murray. And to be honest, maybe a running back is not the biggest need for the Saints, but it feels like the running back room is one that always is dealing with injuries. Last year, Kendre Miller got an extremely light workload because he was dealing with injuries. Alvin Kamara missed some time. Jamal Williams was banged up at portions of the season. So I think that Latavius Murray maybe makes some sense to bring back. And last year for the Bills, he got a decent workload with 300 yards. I mean, 79 carries isn't great, but he didn't have to have 171 carries like he did in 2022. I will also add this. I think that Latavius Murray could be an effective addition because Clint Kubiak wants to run the football. He has been talking a lot this offseason about how he wants this team to be grounded. He wants to win in the trenches, wants to be productive on the ground, especially in first and second down. So a veteran like Latavius Murray may be helpful in this running back group. Now, Alvin Kamara obviously is a damn good running back, but Jamal Williams had a down year. Kendre Miller was dealing with injuries. There's still, a lot to figure out with him. But I will give some credit to Jordan Mims. He's been lighting it up at OTAs, and he's been pretty impressive. But I would want to say don't sleep on Kendre Miller. I don't think you need to add a running back to this group. I think that if you wanted to, sure, why not? But it's not something that I'm sitting here, worrying about if the Saints don't go and add him. I think Kendre Miller was exceptional last year in the limited run we got to see. I really look back to the Patriots game and then the Falcons game at the end of the season where he really just took over. Kendre Miller, especially in Week 18, was dominant. he was fighting for yards. And I remember one specific play when he scored his touchdown this past season. He was about 6-7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. There was multiple Falcons defenders in his way, and he still found a way to find himself in the end zone. He punched it in and was damn good. And not only that, he's also an underrated receiver, I think, as well. And I want to give you guys one more free agent target to discuss or possibly bring back to the New Orleans Saints. Before we do, got to give a shout-out to all the Who Dat dads out there. So if you love your dad or if you forgot to get your dad something for Father's Day, I don't blame you. I almost forgot too. You can go and use this link, chatsports.com/SaintsDad. It's in the comment section. It's in the description of this video. We got these. We got this shirt. There's coffee mugs. There's actually a really cool Saints jersey that says Dad with the number 1 on the back. It's pretty dope. Hats, all sorts of cool stuff. So go get yourself or go get your dad something for Father's Day with the link in the comment section below. So last player I want to discuss is Trai Turner, the offensive guard who was a part of the New Orleans Saints very, very recently until he suffered a quad injury during training camp. Last year, he was signed, and I kid you not even 5 days later, he had an injury and was out for the season. Now, the current offensive line group, I think, is okay. I like it a little bit more than I liked last year's offensive line group, to be quite honest. Eric McCoy, I'm excited to see what he can do, but the two players on the interior, Nick Saldiveri, there's a lot to figure out about him because we haven't really seen him have a starting role, but there's a lot of good things coming out of OTAs around Saldiveri, who, may I remind you, was a player the Saints traded up to get at the top of day 3 in last year's draft. Cesar Ruiz, though, he's been an extremely frustrating player, and I think that he's a guy who struggles a lot at times, and maybe every once in a while you just need to take him off, coach him up a little bit, throw him back out there. And I think Trai Turner could fill in for those snaps when Cesar Ruiz is off the field. I mean, look at the PFF numbers. They're not good. He is an extremely frustrating player because he'll show flashes of being a decent and being a highly competent offensive lineman, but then he has moments where it's just like, what are you doing? You're not even out on the field. There's literally nobody blocking the defensive tackles. Now, maybe it makes sense more so to bring Trai Turner in for training camp or maybe at the end of training camp, kind of just see how things go. Similar to what they did last year, because I don't think that they need to bring him in for mandatory minicamp. I don't think it makes sense for him to go and put himself through all these workouts. I mean, he's a seasoned vet. A lot of these guys are seasoned vets, so it won't surprise me if we don't see any of these players get signed until training camp gets underway or it's even, partially done. So I just think it doesn't make sense to go and sign Trai Turner to be a starter, but to be a rotational backup at that right guard position especially, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, give me a Madden-style rating for the Saints roster in the comment section. Scale it for me 1 to 99. If you think it's a low rating, tell me what you think the Saints need to do to improve the roster. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you want more coverage in between these videos on YouTube, hit me up on Instagram, TraceGirouard48_, or on X/Twitter, TraceGirouard48. The link is in the comment section and description down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.